There we are. Okay, well, I am on the road heading to the Deontay Wilder boxing pay-per-view open workout. And so I am going to be doing this segment with Frank Vernuccio from the road. And depending on how my internet holds out, I may be here for the whole show. I may not be here for the whole show, and it may be Dan Perkins and IQ. However, to start us out here, we've got Frank Vernuccio with us today. Now, Frank, uh, you guys have been not so busy over there at USA Gut Policy. There's hardly been anything going on in the world.
Well, and this has been an interesting day, particularly for Donald Trump administration. Two extraordinary objectives that the president talked about in his campaign: getting NATO to pay its fair share, something he's been trying to do since his first administration. As we speak, the NATO ministers are meeting in Europe, and it seems that all of the countries, except I believe Spain, have pretty much agreed to try to reach that 5% number. And that's a real victory for the Trump administration. And of course, at the same time, ending Iran's nuclear program, something that we all watched over the weekend, and that worked out pretty well. Add to that fact that the border is now solid closed. We've seen numbers about it is closed tighter than it ever has been before. Any one of those three things would have been a monumental success, denoting a successful presidency. But all three together, that's absolutely one for the history books.
So Dan Perkins Media with us today as well. Dan, what kind of questions do you have, sir?
I want to make an observation. I want to get Frank's opinion on it, and you too, Jim. I didn't send it to you, Frank, because I didn't send it many places, but I sent a note to my contact to the White House last week about what I thought the risks were for the president in trying to take out the facilities. And I said, one, the bombs have never been tested against a hardened bunker. Two, we don't know how deep the bunker really is. Is it 200 feet or is it 800 feet? And number three, if they went in but they didn't do the destruction, we didn't accomplish the mission. So I said in my recommendation to the White House, instead of sending 30,000-pound bombs, we have, and you'll love this, Frank, we have the Israeli government build 4 cruise missiles with 30 bomb warheads, and we hit that mountain in 4 different places and cover it with radioactive debris. Nobody's going anywhere, anytime in our lifetimes. It's not going to happen. So what do we have today? The early morning story, which was part of yesterday, there seems to be 800 pounds of enriched, 880 pounds of enriched uranium that nobody seems to know where it is. And now our own government said that based on the early assessment of the damage done to Fordo, they could be back online in 30 days.
Well, of course, there were 3 sites that were hit. 2 of them, one of them particularly, was utterly devastated. So that was certainly a good thing. The other, we're not 100% sure how much damage was done, but I understand it's very substantial. And you're right, at Fordo, we don't know 100%. However, I do think that this is a complex operation, and I do think they have been set back for a lot longer than 30 days. I also think the strategic impact of America being able to pull this off is a message to the rest of the world. Now, of course, we have to sit back and worry about, are there sleeper Iranian cells in the United States who might in some way retaliate? That's a possibility. It's a distinct possibility. If there is uranium missing, that makes it even more worrisome. Although I have been told by a number of my sources, fairly well placed, that it's not impossible to track radioactive material even from space. So I do think that we're going to find out where that stuff is, if in fact it exists at all. So I don't think I'm not excessively worried about that. I think that we're going to see this was a fairly decisive move. It was also decisive in another sense. After the ravages of 4 years of the idiotic administration of Biden
Right.
and the Blinken Secretary of State reign, um, this is a message that America is determined. It has the means to do what it needs to do. And I think that's a very important thing. That in and of itself was a significant victory.
I would agree with you. In fact, the National Security Advisor for Obama came out over the weekend and said Kamala would have never pulled the trigger. She would not pull the trigger. And then the other part of the story is um, when you look at the most recent past presidents, you had Biden, Obama, Clinton, and Bush 41. All of them used weapons without congressional approval, Democrats and
Right.
Republicans alike. So the idea of we're going to impeach him because he used the bombs and didn't come to Congress to get the information, no big deal. But I am concerned that as we get further assessments, then the ideal, and I'm not trying to be I told you so, Frank, but if I had an opportunity because Iran, which we know if IQ was here, he'd say we can't trust them. If they broke the ceasefire, I'd launch those four cruise missiles with stuff on the front on the nose, and I'd saturate that mountain, and nobody's going anywhere near it ever in their lifetime.
Yeah. I had a one-on-one conversation with without using a name, a former SEAL who was quite familiar with the terrain and quite familiar with the issue. And he felt that that one missile or the missiles that were launched from Iran after the ceasefire was announced was probably more a lack of command and control.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the Ayatollah is in hiding. Most of his generals and contacts are dead, the
Mm-hmm.
key ones anyway. So he felt that that was not necessarily to be seen as a statement by the Iranian government, but more a lack of command and control at this point.
Yep. I would say I don't know whether you saw the picture over the weekend or not, but whoever did this is from the Iranian government. Whoever did this should be taken out somewhere and disappear. Because what he did is he showed a conference room with the faces of
Right, right.
all the remaining staff in one place. I would have found out, and maybe they did, but I would find out where that staff meets, and that would be one of my next targets. If we get there's IQ calling me. Yes, sir. Okay. So anyway, so I agree with you. I think it was a great weekend. I think um, the Sunday morning survey by King Polling of over 40,000 American voters was almost 80% in favor of what he did the night before. So again, it's one of those, as we've talked many times, Frank and Jiggy, we've talked about the fact that the Democrats are on the wrong side of the table. The Republicans have the issues that are important and they control 80% of the space. What's left for the Democrats, they can't agree with the Republicans, so they have to take the other side. What are they trying to do when the American people want over 53% want all of the illegals out of the country, all of them, and we've got 80% of the people who are agreeing with Donald Trump and what he did to try and help us by getting rid of these nuclear facilities. I mean, it in my meeting I did I have a Monday morning meeting with a bunch of seniors and and I said if there's one word that you could use to describe what happened on Saturday night, you know what the word was? Proud. Proud. And
You
I
know, I
saw
have no sympathy. I have no sympathy for and never wanted to be a Russian arms dealer. But if you're a Russian arms dealer, this is a really bad weekend for you. Iran spent a couple of $1 billion on those SA-400 anti-air missiles and surveillance systems. They weren't worth garbage. So, let me say why that's important, other than knocking out the business of Russian arms dealers. There is a country that is crucial to America and the West future. That country is India. The main impediment between expanded relations between the United States and its allies in the Indo-Pacific and India has been a certain nostalgia of senior Indian military staff for Russian arms and Russian arms systems. And I think this has illustrated more clear than anything else how inferior those products are. And I'm hoping the Indian government takes a good look at this and realizes, this flirtation that we've had almost since the beginning with Russia isn't really worth it. Their arms are not worth it. Their policies are not worth it. As a country, they don't have very much to offer us. If, in fact, this dissuades India from continuing its relationship with Russia, that's a major turning tide in world events because India is a vital counterweight to China, which is where the real action is at this point.
Right. And it's now the largest population in the world. It's overtaken, it was
Correct.
behind China, and the death rates in China have increased so that they're ahead. The other thing is, if you remember, not that long ago, Frank, when India and Pakistan were going to swap nuclear missiles, nobody called Vladimir Putin. They called Donald Trump, and
Right.
Donald Trump brought it to an end in a hurry. So I just think I agree with you. I think it was a great weekend. Um, Whoopi's on sabbatical for a week, so they don't have to worry about her and what she's doing on the air. But Washington still seems to be. What's your sense of the 4th of July deadline on the big beautiful bill? What's going to happen?
So far, it seems to be moving ahead fairly well. Trump came down awfully hard on the rhinos, and I think that's going to be sending a clear message. Remember, the defeat of a similar type of thing in the first Trump administration wasn't defeated by the Democrats, it was defeated by rhino Republicans.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Remember, Trump in his first term also had the House and the Senate for a period of time, but the rhinos knocked him out of the ballpark in accomplishing what he wanted to accomplish. This time around, I think he has been quite harsh, rightfully so, on the rhinos, and I think that's sending a message. I think the big beautiful bill is going to go through. Now, does that mean it's perfect? Of course not. But politics is the art of the possible. We don't have a 50-seat majority in the House of Representatives. We don't have a 20-seat majority in the Senate. We have to pass what we can pass.
Right.
Something is better than nothing. And
Right.
I think that the Republicans, whether it's Murkowski or others, um, really need to wise up a little bit, quite frankly, because they're behaving irrationally. This is
Right.
as good as you can get with the small majority that we have in both houses of the legislature. And I think they're going to have to go along with it, or I think face a lot of questions in the future about their loyalties and about, frankly, their sanity, because you can't get a perfect bill. You're not
Right.
going to achieve that with this type of small majority.
Right. There was an interesting discussion over the weekend that I saw when they were talking about you're talking about the majority or small majority. When Mr. Trump introduced his ideas of what he wanted to get done at the congressional address, he mentioned no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. The last message I heard was no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and nothing said about Social Security.
Interesting. Interesting.
What are you hearing?
Um, Pretty much the same thing at this point, although I got a lot of it is really great. I think one of the interesting things about no tax on overtime,
Mm-hmm.
America is in a race right now. Our defense industrial base is so small that for us to produce the ships and tanks and equipment that we need, we're going to have to get a lot of defense plants going double time. That includes a lot of overtime
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. So I think that overtime provision is going to be the key portion of that whole bill.
Yeah, I think the big shortage that I keep hearing about is as crazy as it sounds. Yeah, we need newer ships and we need new tanks and all that stuff. We need bullets.
Yeah,
We need
artillery
bullets.
shells in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, we gave out the 105 howitzer shells to Ukraine, a million of them, and we had practically nothing left.
Yeah. One of the lessons of World War II, the Germans probably had item for item better equipment than we did, but we produced more of it. In fact, it was inexhaustible. And that was one of the reasons why we won World War II.
Yeah.
And America right now in a 12-day war, in a 1-month war, can beat any combination of forces on this planet, bar none.
Hmm.
Once you go beyond that, though, we start running awfully short of equipment, and
Right.
that's a real crisis.
Yep. I'm sorry. One last thing before we let you go, or I let you go. Um, Several commentators over the weekend were saying that one of the results of the action by the president over the weekend and the previous week is that China's going to back off from Taiwan. That's probably not on the table this year.
I didn't expect it to be necessarily on the table this year. I think if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris had been elected, I think it could have been on the table. Um, but from my understanding, there are two dates to keep in mind with China, and depends whose numbers you believe. The more optimistic is that we have until 2030 when the Chinese military, according to some estimates, would be at its peak. Others, however, say that the Chinese military will be at its peak in 2027, which is less optimistic for us. So I don't know which of those is accurate, frankly. Um, but I would hope that it's the latter date, which would give us more time to gear up our defense industrial base to be
Right.
prepared.
The thing that I've seen that has impact on what you're talking about is the mortality rate in China is accelerating. And the people are saying by 2030, there may be a 500 million people no longer in China. 500 million. And that
Well,
the margin that India will have, they have about a 200 million margin right now over India over China, but it could be 500 million or 750 million. It's a huge number. And so
the other issue to watch out for is not so much external but internal within China. Um, China's facing some massive internal problems. Number one, and we've said this before on the show, because of their one-child family policies, they're now in a situation where they have a lot of young men and not a lot of young women. And a
mhm,
lot of those young men not only can't find girlfriends, they also can't find jobs.
right,
That's a massive internal problem for President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party to face.
right,
And what do you do when you have a lot of horny, unemployed young guys? Well, in some cases, you send them off to war. That keeps the problem tampered down in a way. So that's something to look out for. Also, China's economy, as the rest of the world realizes that China is not going to have a stranglehold over the world economy, as India starts to gear up and becomes an alternate source for a lot of those cheap goods, as Vietnam starts to gear up and becomes a source
right.
of alternate goods, China is getting a lesser position in the world as each day goes by. And you have to get into the mind of President Xi, who has to decide, is it time to act because it's not going to get any better? Or is this time already past? And we see a similar problem with both Vladimir Putin and President Xi. They're both older guys. They're both seeing their fortunes deteriorate. That makes for some dangerous times.
Right. I saw a report when I was writing the article that we only have numbers from Border Patrol through a year ago March, but as of a year ago March, during the time of the Biden presidency, to that point in time, 190,000 refugees, illegal immigrants, or what do you want to call them, came from China.
Yeah.
190,000. And I got to believe it continued to grow. So it's got to be over 200,000. 200,000 of not necessarily the best and the brightest, but the good and okay who couldn't find a job, or maybe some brightest who couldn't find a job, left the country. And there's a new piece that was out. You may know about this. In 2017, the Chinese government passed a law that says Chinese citizens who leave on a visa and go to any other place in the world, including the United States, automatically become spies for the Chinese
Right.
government.
That's exactly right. And indeed here in my hometown of New York City, um, the Chinese even for a time had a branch of the Chinese police force, which would make sure that Chinese immigrants to this country did the bidding of the CCP.
Right, right.
So this
And
is a serious fifth column that we're talking about.
right. Now, last question for you. Who's going to win the Democratic primary?
Those of us in New York are shaking in our boots because of the scheme, and I can't think of a nicer word than that, of this ranked choice voting. That means a despicable, and I use that word in every sense of the word, candidate, like Satami, who is a socialist and an anti-Semite, could very well wind up winning the Democratic primary. Now, in an out-and-out contest, I think probably not. But with ranked choice voting, there could be a runoff, and if the progressives turn out in full storm, that could be a problem. Also, it is 100 degrees in New York City,
Right.
and most of the voters for the socialist candidate tend to be young. Most of the supporters for the more traditional candidates tend to be older who might not want to come out in 100 degrees. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of forces at play. None of them look very good, frankly, at this point.
Yep, I agree.
So Vernuccio, I am in the voting
Froze.
that you just mentioned.
Say again, James. I'm sorry.
He's just,
Okay.
you're breaking
Apparently,
up, bud.
apparently they can't hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Now we can
I
hear you
can.
now.
Okay. So rank choice voting. I'm in the dark on this. Explain this to me.
Okay, you used to go in the traditional American way, you vote for your favorite candidate and you leave, right? Well, according to ranked choice voting, you're supposed to rank the candidates in order that you like them, one, two, three, four, and five,
That
which means that
sounds ridiculous.
an utterly despicable candidate, you just might put him down there as number five. Some people might be ignorant enough to do that. You still can only vote for one if you want to, but a lot of people aren't doing that. They're voting for candidates, which means that an utter fool, an utter dangerous candidate like the socialist can actually wind up getting a huge percentage of the votes. And it's one of those things like California's ballot harvesting, which guarantees that every Democrat registered will somehow cast a vote whether they want to or not. Um, it's a scheme that has really destroyed, I think, electoral fairness in the United States, and we're about to see what it does to New York this time around.
So do you think, Frank, following Jim's question, do you think that Cuomo is out?
No, not necessarily. I think he's still the leading candidate on the Democrat line. But remember, this is going to be interesting because the current incumbent mayor, Mayor Eric Adams, is not running in the Democratic primary. He's going to be running on an independent ticket.
Hmm.
And in fact, the socialist candidate, Mondami, is also going to be running, whether he wins the Democratic Party primary or not, on an independent ticket. So you're going to see a very strange electoral contest. And of course, waiting in the wings, a lot of people with bated breath are thinking, does this mean the Republican candidate actually has a chance if you split the Democrats between two independent ticket candidates? That's a possibility. So we'll have to see how that shakes out.
Who's the likely Republican to be?
The likely Republican is a former head of the Guardian Angels,
Curtis Sweela.
Curtis Sliwa, who
Yes.
I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years now. Very solid on crime, very solid on the key issues of New York. Very solid guy for the most part. Problem is, I don't necessarily think he has a lot of money behind him, but he'll probably get the Republican line since no one else has really claimed it so far. The Republicans in states like New York tend to have a tendency to not take serious election races down to the wire. They just
Mhm.
don't put the money into it, which is why I think in the past, the Republicans have not fared well in New York. They simply haven't taken the races seriously enough. They've given up, in other words,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay. Okay.
That is interesting that he would be the nominee.
Think of New York City as the most capitalist city in the United States, if not the world, and a socialist could be the mayor. It's also the city with the biggest Jewish population outside of Israel, and it could have an anti-Semite as mayor. It's
Hmm.
astounding.
Right. And some of those Jewish people will vote for that Democrat because they're liberals first before they're Jews.
They're New York Times Jews,
Hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
And it's
They're
absolutely
New
astounding
York
to consider.
Times News. That is amazing. So, Vernuccio, before we let you go, bring us up to speed on the radio program, TV program, everything you've got going.
Well, thanks for asking. On usagovpolicy.com, we're going to be talking to Tyler Gray, who is a former Delta Force operator with good knowledge of the area of the world we're talking about today. And he's going to talk a lot about what's going on in that part of the world right now, particularly after what happened over the weekend. We're also going to be talking to Maureen Steele, who's the co-founder of American Made Foundation, and they raise money to fight against the nonsense lawsuits against the Trump administration. So it's worth tuning in and finding out what they're all about and how you can sign on and help them.
Good.
Gentlemen,
Fantastic. Well,
particularly you,
Frank,
James.
thanks for doing this. Really
James,
appreciate the time.
drive safe and keep your eyes on the road, will you, buddy?
That's what I've been doing mostly this entire time. Every once in a while, I'll glance at the phone. But thank you, Frank. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Take care, gentlemen. Talk to you soon.
You better take care.
Yes. So Dan, bring us up to speed on some of your projects while we wait on our next guest, hopefully, to join us here in a few moments.
Okay. I'm still working on the book for the Irishman, and um, I I thought when I wrote the commentary on what the president should do, um, I had a contact in the White House but I guess it got in too late to get into the mix, and that's okay. But I think that this next week is going to be the euphoria may wear off as to the success of the bombing mission on Saturday and what was done, and you may see some bloom off the rose in Mr. and the appreciation for the job that Mr. Trump did. There's no question that they did a great job in terms of the logistics and getting there and hitting their targets. But I still think that um, that story isn't over yet. And the Washington Post, while we were on the air, Washington Post came out this afternoon and said that they're confirmed that it's maybe more than 30 days, but not totally devastated as we were led to believe by Hegstead and Donald Trump. Have you heard anything from IQ? James? He's not there. Okay.
Hey.
There you are. Have you heard from IQ at all? And who's the next guest?
There we are. Maybe I can hear you now.
I hope so.
So Dan, I know that you've been doing a lot of writing. received with folks.
I'm sorry. You broke up. Are you out in the woods, Jim?
I am. It feels like I am out in the woods somewhere. I'm going in and out.
Find a spot. Find a spot and pull over.
What? I've been waiting on our next guest to join us because we're an interesting guest. Hopefully, they know how
And did
to
you?
get on Zoom and they have all the information.
Yeah. Did you? And
You're
did
going
you
to have a
not hear from?
blast talking to them if they
You haven't heard from
actually
IQ?
join us here.
You haven't heard anything?
I haven't heard from IQ, and for whatever reason, he cannot get on this Zoom meeting. I do not know why.
Because he's done it. He's
For
done
whatever
several shows.
reason,
He's done shows with me on Zoom.
every time I send him the Zoom information, he never can get it.
Well, he
So
can't even get the
I'm not real
information.
sure why. He supposedly
Maybe they're
cannot get
intercepting
on.
it. Maybe they're intercepting it.
So I don't know. Every time I send him the information, he always is like, I can't get in. You get in on Tuesdays, Don gets in on Thursdays. You
Does
guys
he
have
have it on
zero
Thursday?
issue
Does it
with
work
it.
on Thursday?
He
Does
can't
he?
get in on Thursdays either. It's
Or
the
he can't get Thursday either.
wildest.
Are you there, Jim? Are you there, James? Wow, what an art fuck.